Okay, guys, welcome. Thanks for continuing to follow. So we had a early morning, I guess, repairs. I ended up repairing last night from about 10 o'clock in the morning until about about 1 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock in the morning, and back at it today. So we're starting to get some of the repairs down. The one that we did leave out on is this guy, which is the Gamegear. And what we've done is we've cleaned up all the pads on it. And we're getting ready to actually put the actual capacitors in place. So again, let's pull up the right monitor here. Okay, so on the right monitor, holy crap, I don't even have it on my quick thing. Okay. So on the right monitor here, we have a really cool website, which I tend to use anyways, which is Console 5. Now, they do have cap kits, and as I was saying yesterday, the cap kits on there, I mean, feel free, they're acceptable, but I like to go above and beyond. The caps that they give on the in the kits themselves are cylindrical caps that have oils inside that actually work as the battery function. The problem with that is they have a lifespan. The reason that you're recapping a Gamegear and having issues with your Gamegear is because of those caps. They only have a certain lifespan, and then after that they start leaking. So you're actually replacing them with the exact same ones that in 10 to 15 years will start leaking again. So it's up to you what you want to do. We use ceramic caps here, which are a little bit of a pain in the ass because if you mix them up, you'll never be able to tell them apart unless you have a meter like what we have to tell you the actual capacitor rating. So the ones we use are ceramic. They have no liquid in them. They will last forever without any issues. They do die from time to time or short out or whatever, but at least you won't have any leaking acid on the board eating away at the traces. So I'm going to highlight a few. So let's go back to the website. I'm all over the place here. I think it's lack of sleep. So here we have on the Console 5 web page, we have the Gamegear section. And the Gamegear section here gives us all the capacitor listings, tells us how to actually identify which system you have. It also has all the schematics and the service manuals for it. If I scroll down, so this is the audio board here. So these are the caps on the audio board, and if you click on the picture, it'll show you the locations of C1, C2, C3, C5, and C7. Then we have our power board, and there's a few different variations of the power board. The VA4 is more of a rare one you'll probably never see. The majority of them is this one right here. So there is basically 3 replaceable caps, and they're a little bit larger caps on it. They are cylindrical. You're going to have a hard time trying to find a few of them. They are cylindrical, but they're also through-hole caps. So you'll want to replace those with actual liquid-filled caps. But rest assured, these aren't the ones that actually leak. So even if you change them out, you're like, you know what? They've been in there for a long time, obviously, so I'm going to replace them. These ones don't get abused like the system does. So they do last an extremely long time. So replacing them out is a good thing. But rest assured, when you do replace them out, you'll probably get like 20, 25 years on them easy without the actually leaking. So going to the actual variations. We have the only two that you really need to worry about is the VA1 systems. So this one has a single ASIC processor, which is the main processor that runs the system, where the VA1 twin ASIC is this one here, and the caps vary slightly. And what we're looking at when we're talking about the ASIC processors, let's go back to the desk shot here. So this guy here, this big guy, is actually the ASIC processor. So in the later models, they had 2. No idea why. Don't know if it makes a difference, but that's one thing to be aware of when you're actually looking at these. Easiest thing to do if you need to identify. So this is the one we're working on here. There was a large cap up here, which is at C68. Over here, we have the C43 and the C45, which are on that diagram. And then we have the C47 and the C49. And all the caps basically line up to exactly what they are. So that's the way to determine which one you have, and then you just follow the proper guide. For anybody that's listening, yes, there is a noise in the background. That's our disc refinisher. Unfortunately, it's going to be running for a little bit today. We need to get caught up on some disc refinishing, so it's a fully robotic system that we have here. And let me actually throw these on. So what we're going to be doing is replacing the caps on these, or actually putting caps on. If you watched the stream from last night or this morning, depending on how you look at it will highlight the removal of the caps, the cleaning of the pads, the checking the pads out to make sure there's actually material on them to actually solder a replacement cap to it. And one thing I won't do under the microscope. So when I'm actually replacing with ceramic caps, the caps are extremely small, very tight to work with. The other problem is that they don't work. You can't sit there with a soldering iron, lay down the cap and solder one side, and then walk around to the other side and solder the other side. It doesn't work with these. These ones are extremely small. You have to work with tweezers to get them in place. But on top of that, everybody has their own technique. You can use hot tweezers, which I find to be a pain in the ass. That would be a perfect solution for this. That's what the professionals use as far as manufacturing and such to change out caps and replace caps. I find it a pain in the ass. My technique seems to be easier for me, so that's the one I tend to use. And I think I have the wrong bit on this. Yeah, I do. It's a massive bit. Okay, so I'm just going to get that changed out. The proper one I actually want. Actually, maybe it's a pencil tip one. Okay. Give me a second here while I change this out. What you're hearing there is just the soldering iron yelling at me because I actually unplugged it or pulled the tip out, and it's sitting there saying, hey, crap, there's something wrong with your soldering iron. There's no tip on there. So I've already got this board cleaned up, and we're getting ready to replace the caps themselves. And I'll get under the microscope when I get a chance anyways to show you close up anyways, but we're just going to apply flux to the pads themselves. And we did this when we were actually cleaning too, so the board itself is very used to this. I've been loading it up with flux. Okay, so I think I got all the pads. That one. Okay, so it's just a little bit of flux to help it along. I mean, I do use flux core solder, but because we're touching the pads twice, the flux core solder tends to dry up the flux that's actually in it. So what I'm going to be doing is actually applying solder to the pads themselves, but what I will be doing is only on one side of the pad. So when you're looking at this pad here, I'm going to apply solder to one side, but not the other side yet. So I want to run around and actually do that on this board for one side everywhere. Actually, maybe I'll zoom out, make it a little bit easier on me. Well, this one's a little harder to get into. So again, just solder on one side. And you know, a decent amount of solder. Nice thing about cleaning these pads is they actually accept solder nicely. Whereas beforehand, if you don't do that step, it's a freaking nightmare. So even if you don't put enough solder on here, when you get the ceramic capacitor in place and you're like, it doesn't look like there's enough solder in that area, it's a little light, you can go back and add the solder to the pads without much of an issue. So it's going to go back to our wiring diagram here. Not wiring diagram, but our cap listing. Okay, so first one we're going to tackle is C68, which is the power cap, which is the one we're looking at there. And that one is a 100 UF 6.3. So I'll grab my container for that. So radials. Okay. I'll show you what the ceramic caps actually look like. They're extremely small. So that there is what a ceramic cap actually looks like. And just to give you a comparison, I'll put my disgusting nail there. But it's extremely, extremely small. The nice thing about these is they are bidirectional. There's no polarity to them. So you can put them in frontwards, backwards, whatever. As long as there's solder connected to this pad and solder connected to that pad, you're good to go. So that's one other interesting fun fact about them. Makes it a lot easier. So, funny enough, I actually did this one backwards, so I'm going to be working in reverse. What we're going to do is we're going to throw this one in the proper place, which is right in that corner. And I've kind of got it a little bit. What I typically do is actually the other pad. It's been a while since I've done a Gamegear. I've been focusing on PS4s and such. But typically, the other pad, because it's a hell of a lot easier. So as you can see there, we've got solder on the one side, no solder on the other side, but the actual cap is properly positioned there. So I can move it around, no problem at all. That's perfect. So you can actually go back and do the soldering on the other side, or you can go back at the end and finish the soldering on the other side of the cap if you want to, whatever you prefer. And there we have a finished cap. So that's one of the main power caps, which before him was a very large radial cap. And now we have it as a very small condensed cap. To me, it looks a hell of a lot nicer when the board's actually complete to have all ceramic caps on it. Okay, so we do have a few that are similar here. Let me list them because I can never remember them. So in the single ASIC, we have a bunch of 10 UF caps that are 10 UF 16 volt. And so I'm just going to grab my container of 10 UF 16. Actually, you know what? These are not 16. Apparently I got containers in the wrong spots here. You know what? Let's do a little test here. Only because I just relabeled all my parts and everything. So I'll go back to our desk view here. So here we have two containers, and I redid my labeling, but I find they're out of place. The last thing I want to do is be allocating a 50 volt cap into a 10 volt, or later on having a request for a 50 volt and using a 16 volt. That's going to blow up. So what we want to do is actually test these caps to make sure that they are what they're supposed to be. So we're going to use an LCR meter quickly. Determine it. And what I'll do is I'll pull one of these caps and we'll see what the rating is on it. We'll be good to go. So they do have a tolerance of about 10%. These caps are so small that it makes it really hard to actually get a good reading on it. They're actually reading about 80. Oh, you know what? Forget that. It's on the wrong setting. It's actually a little bit low for my liking. Unless the meter's not behaving 100%. Okay. So, in this situation, I mean, it calls for a 6.3. I'm using 50s and 16s. You can actually go to a higher voltage capacity without an issue. But I am going to... The 50 volts actually don't get used for anything other than a nomad. But what I'm probably going to do is I'll use up my 16s. I'll end up putting a strip of 50s in there, which are a lot more money. But there's no way to actually, for me to, and I didn't think about this ahead of time, there's no way for me to actually measure the voltage, the maximum voltage that these capacitors can actually hold with any kind of meter or anything, because I would be taking it to the point that it basically pops, which is a really, really loud noise. And not something we want to do is put 50 volts through a 16 volt and see if it's a proper one. Oh, maybe it's a little science experiment. But anyways, so we're going to go ahead and... Oh, you know what? I need a bunch of these anyways. I think there is... of these guys. Okay, so there we have 4 of them, and that is C4. It's a paper here. C4, C11, C15, and C32. Okay, we go to our wiring diagram here. C11 is in this bottom corner over here. That guy there. Okay. Grab one of these caps and kind of lay it in position. There we go. And once again, I'm going to liquefy the one side here that already has the solder in place. Hold in position until it solidifies, and then go back with our solder and actually solder the other side. Okay, perfect. Now, next we have C11. Oh, C11 is what we just did, so C14, C42, which are the other ones on this side. So, tackle these two. You can see both of them on the screen there. Same thing, liquefy the one side. Get the cap in place. Back. after we're totally done, we'll get this board a good cleaning with isopropyl alcohol to finish off the look anyways. I'm kind of OCD about what my repairs actually look like, only because I like to be proud of the work I do. And actually there's one pad there that I forgot to prime. I like to be proud of the work I actually do. So another pad I forgot. Look at that. And late night maybe. There we go. And apparently there's another one. I was looking at the microscope trying to figure out why I was seeing one that I did not see myself. Okay, so those guys are done. That is the 10U 16 volt out of the way. So, actually no, we still got one more. So we did C4. Oh yes, and then the one on the other side, which is the I swear to God, I'm losing it here. Ah, C4, which is this guy in this bottom corner. And I think I need to clean this. Problem with working with flux all the time. Then I get flux on the actual tweezers, and then the tweezers won't let go. Okay. So kind of working backwards on this one. I don't want to flip it around, which I normally would. And that one's sitting a little bit too far away from the other pad. That's a better position. So I can still see that there's pad over here, where I couldn't see that a minute ago, so. Okay, there we have that cap in place. So we're making progress. There's only a few more anyways, but they're a little bit harder because every single time I've got to get the right ones. We'll do C43 right now, which is that one there. And C43 calls for a 22 UF 6.3. And I've got that one. Radial. Funny enough, there's a spot there for them, but there's none there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to step it up to a 35 volt. So a 22 UF 35 volt for C43 spot. And C43. C45. Oh, it's badly labeled, but you can actually see it on the board here. C43. This guy right here. So higher voltage, more money. These guys, some of them are actually, they can be $1 or $2 each. Just gonna turn this sideways a little bit. And I don't know if you can see, but actually, I think I bridged. Looks like I'm not working under the telescope. I had that capacitor pushed over way too far and actually bridged it to this guy here, so it's kind of that over. Try and get it straight. There we go. And you can see I've already cleared out the bridge anyways. Bridge was there. Just have to be careful, because the one thing you don't want to have to do is go back and re-examine all your solders and find out that you made a very, very simple mistake that could have been avoided. Very time consuming. Okay, so that other blob of solder that you're seeing there is actually the other cap that has to go in there. And that other cap is C45, and C45 is a 4.7 35 volt. Which we seem to be getting a little low on. I may have the caps set aside anyways. The move over to this new store has been a little bit chaotic, and there's a lot of chaos. I redid all my parts bins, and I'm sure you can imagine there is a crap ton of parts bins for different capacitors and everything for doing this kind of work. So it does take a little bit of time to get where I want it to be. Okay, so I've got this cap here. And once again, just to confirm, this is the 47 35 volt going on to C45. And if we're looking at the board here, you can see that it actually says C45 right beside it. Come on. Need 2 sets of tweezers. You can see there it says C45. What's going on out there? Ah. Good. Yep. Nice. For repair, or? Ah, gotcha. Yeah, it's always a fine line responding to people online in a business environment when they're trying to troll you. My wife was just talking about a customer complimenting us on our responses in regards to trolling posts, which are always such fun. C55 and C54 are exactly the same cap, so that makes it a little easier. C54 is there. Hell, C50. Oh, look at that! I can see it on the screen there. So we have 54, which let's get an angle. C54, perfect, and C55 right there. So those guys are all nice small caps here. They are a 0.47. They're 50 volt? Yeah, 0.47 50 volt. Actually, I'm going to be taking a quick look at these. I see my labeling kind of all over the place, and it's scary when you're talking ceramic capacitors because they all look exactly the same. There's no markings on the cap to actually tell you what the hell they are. So one little mistake and you're putting the wrong one in. So this one here is supposed to be a 0.47, and it's reading 427 PF, which is exactly where we really needed to be. There's 430. So 430 on a 4.7, it's still within the tolerance range, which is plus or minus 10%. So we do know that we have the right one anyways. Need 2 of these. This one's the easiest one to get access to, so we'll do this one first. Just going to move that one over so we can expose the pad. If you don't get it properly centered, it's not much of an issue as long as you make contact with the actual pad. The problem is that when it comes to soldering the other side of the pad, so this side here, if you don't have enough exposed, and this one's kind of drifted towards that pad, what you end up having is potentially a bridge underneath between the pads themselves. So I like to properly center it, have visual of the other side of the pad, so that we don't have any issues. Perfect on that one. Get this other guy in place. Actually, where's the stream chat? Sorry for the pause here, guys. Okay. Got that open so I can at least see any comments or questions from all the different sites we stream on. And I'm not sure what the hell I'm doing here. I have totally the wrong tool in my hand. Somebody asked me last night if I use the microscope for all my soldering. No, I mean, as you get older, obviously your vision starts to fail anyways. So there is some that if it's really, really tight or whatever, or I need to verify my solder, I will do that on the microscope. But for the most part, no, I'm not using the microscope for all my work. It's actually a little bit of a pain in the ass. You use a microscope on a regular basis, so yeah, we already did that side, Good to go on those ones too. Perfect. Okay. We've only got a few left, I think. We've got 2 over here. 1, 2, which we'll probably tackle right now. Okay, so those guys there are C47 and C49. C47 is a 68 UF. The one is 100 UF 4 volts. Do the 68 6.3. And that one's not on there. Maybe we'll skip that one for a minute. It's the C49, and C49 is 100 UF 4 volt, which I do have here. Sorry, just pulling this out of the package here. Okay, got the cap already here to go on. And this is just to verify the 100 UF 4 volt, which is going on to C49. Put it in place here. One side done. So as far as upgrades on the Gamegear, I don't do them too often, but I do push it quite a bit. The Gamegear itself, we have, and actually that's bad to show it under the microscope because it's way too close. But just to talk about one thing here. So Gamegears take 6 batteries to actually operate, so 6 AA batteries, which is a shit ton of power. The reason for that, the main reason, is this guy right here. So this is a reflector, and between this and this is actually a fluorescent light, like you have in the ceilings of schools or offices and such, or stores. But this fluorescent light uses a crap ton of power. This is the transformer for it, and it actually upscales or raises the voltage on the system in order to power the fluorescent light. This thing sucks a ton of battery power. Not very effective by any means. And yeah, so we try and get rid of them whenever we possibly can. Okay, so there is one other one that we can do right now before I go ahead and try and find that other one. And that is the C1. C1 is a 33 UF 6.3. That one's up there at least. (33 UF 6.3 on C1). Okay, perfect. I always like to double check and verify my my ideas like a second time. Just I mean, I'm somebody that deals with ADD, and I can lose track and focus on what I'm actually working with in an extremely short period of time. But at the same time, my ADD also helps me with knowledge and learning ability. So the catch-22, but I wouldn't have it any other way. There we have one side done. The other side done. So now we come back to one cap that's actually missing. Oh, and I just put that one in the wrong spot. So perfect example of my ADD. Okay, the one side soldered on there. And we've got the other side soldered on there. So we've done all the ones except for that C40, 40, 48, it is? Not C47, the 68 6.3. So in this situation, I think, no, I don't have a 6.8 in the radials. Okay. I think I'm going to be right back. I'm going to do a quick search around here, see if I can find the baggie for those ones, and I'll be right back. Exactly. No. Okay, so let me know if you have any issues beyond that. Apparently I had my mic off for a lot of that time when we were talking about the capacitor here. But regardless, I will touch bases on it again. So we didn't have the regular radial cap, so sorry, the regular ceramic cap, so we went to a radial cap, and this is where we're actually mounting it, and we need to get both these legs actually soldered into position. The one thing we want to make sure is that we don't have a cold solder joint, so we really want to kind of push it down, go back to the other side, make sure that one's nice and flush to the board itself, to make sure that we actually have a solid connection. There we go, that one's in place. The one thing you want to be careful of, you see these, can't zoom out anymore, but these dots here, these dots basically symbolize where pieces of plastic are actually going to push against this board to keep it in place. These are where the buttons actually sit. So we need to make sure that if you are using radial caps, the cylindrical caps, that these cylindrical caps do not interfere with anywhere where the plastic is on the actual case. Otherwise, you'll just have a pain in the ass that the case won't go back together, and you'll be questioning yourself on what the hell you did. So yeah, all the caps are now in place. I do see one that actually is sitting a little high for my liking. I'm going to go back only because it will be a cold solder joint on it, and you can't really see it from your side, but I can see it by looking at it. So in this situation, what we need to do is heat up both sides nicely so that the cap actually falls into position. Just going to take a closer look on that one just to make sure we don't have ugly bridge, which I think we have right now. Yeah. So as you can see there, we actually have a bridge. I don't know if these two caps are supposed to be touching in as far as the circuitry goes, but if we don't know, we want to get rid of that. So in this case, it may be just using some solder wick and removing the solder in between. You don't have to remove it all. You definitely have to remove some. Okay, and now that the solder is actually removed, I'm going to do what we just undid. Just make sure that we have good solder amount on that side and the one we bridged with. There we go. So the bridge is gone. Again, just something to be extremely careful about. Don't like the way that one looks either. We have this one here, which has a little bit of a cone on it, only because it looks like the flux dried up on it. We're just going to apply a little bit more flux, and we're going to clean up that one, make it look like it's a professional job. Okay. So, the last thing we have to do on this board is properly test it out, make sure it actually does turn on. And what we want to do in this situation is use a backing that we know actually works. So I should have here. This is the good sound board. I think that's the bad power board. You know what, we'll try both of them and we'll see which one works here. I thought I put notes on it, but apparently I did not. So realistically, I don't need to hook up the soundboard or anything else. All I need to do is basically give this system power. And this is the power connector there. So the rest of them, yes, you can hook it up. This one here is for the actual soundboard to get the sound into the board. So that one gets the sound into the board so it can process it. And then this guy here is actually the speaker, which goes right over here. But we still need to recap and do some work on the other side of the board. And this is the reason why I don't normally do it. I don't know why I'm doing it, just because I'm streaming, I guess. But and yes, there is always a chance that, you know, we had an issue along the lines with actually changing the cap set. We may have to go over it all and determine exactly what's going on. Now, where did I put my AA batteries? Give me 1 second just to gather up some AA batteries, and I'll be right back. Hopefully when it comes down to it, in the future streams, I'll be a little bit more prepared for this kind of thing. So, AA batteries. I've got packages of them at home, and they were supposed to come in, but apparently they didn't actually come to the store yet, so I'll have to wait until tomorrow. Now, with these ones being random batteries, in order to stop us from not knowing whether the problem we're having is a dead battery or whatever, we're going to do is just test up these batteries quick and make sure that they actually have proper voltage. So any voltmeter will actually work for you, even the cheapest of the cheap. So what we want to see on a battery is 1.5, then we have a 4.42, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. So and I figured this one was because it looks a little scummier than the other ones. I figured this one was going to be a problem. Let me see if I can locate another one very quickly here. If not, we can use that one. I would just prefer not to. Actually, you know what? I've got my original Game Boy here. And I think these batteries are probably pretty much new. Okay. So, replacement battery here. 1.5. So we're good. Get rid of that crappy one there. Okay. Again, one of these power boards I don't think was actually given any power, but I'm not sure which one it is. So if we don't get power to the system, we've got to double check that one. And power switch is still in place. That's perfect. And it's off right now. Three, two, one, and go. And we have power. That's a good sign to start with. We've got display on it. Now there's no game in there, so obviously we're not going to get any display on it. We just know that there's actually power on it. So turn it off, and we'll see if we can find a game quick. I know I have those in the front. That's not an issue. We've got 10 billion Gamegear games. Actually, here's a pirated cartridge with a bunch of crappy games on it. Just to give you a look, you should see the game titles are on this. It's hilarious. So, I don't know if you can see it very well, but we have... number 1 is Cliffhanger, number 2 is Simpson World, then we have RoboCop 3, Woody Pop, Bank Panic, My Hero, Teddy Boy, Great Soccer, Joe Machine Gun, Satellite 7, Tennis, Arkanoid, World Cup 94, Mad Dog, and Super Tennis. Just such a variety. And nothing. Now, to be quite honest with you, I don't normally just stick random cartridges in to systems to test them. Only because you come up with this and it's like, well, is it the cartridge? Which, ew, it's completely gross. Okay, so let's do this. I will be back in 2 seconds with a Gamegear game that we can try out here. Okay. So here we have columns, which is actually one of our test discs. So if this doesn't work, and it does. So, where's the brightness on this thing? So much quality. So, volume on this thing. Don't hear any noise. That's actually exactly what I expected. Only because we haven't changed the caps on this. So, funny enough, that is what a Gamegear screen looks like. Like crap. Not much you can do for that. A lot of that is the fluorescent lighting on the back, so you can change the contrast on it slightly. Make it a little bit more noticeable. The sound on these systems is actually pretty good. Caps have been changed and everything's working, so. We know that's all good. And we know this board provides power. That's perfect. What I am going to quickly do is swap around the other power board and see if we also get power from that one, because this system here wasn't powering on, and I just want to find out if it's actually a power board issue or if it's either it's a power board issue or it is it was just the problem with the system itself. So I'm not going to hook up sound because we know the sound. Actually, on this one it will work because this one has been recapped with radio caps at some point in the past. Okay. Okay, so we do have a power board issue on this one. We're not getting any display that we had before, and we'll take a look at that. And we could take a look at it in a few minutes, but I have somebody here that needs my attention. Actually, a few different people, which happens every single time when I start streaming. So what we're going to do is, we've only been live for just over an hour. We've got hours and hours left of different repairs we're going to take a look at, including finishing off this Gamegear, so I won't do it without the stream. But as soon as I have all the stuff I need to continue and taking care of all the stuff in the store here that's acquiring my attention, we'll come back and stream again. So pay attention and watch for the notifications. Thanks.